Do you ever promise to help, then quietly opt out when the hard work arrives? Notice this, in Numbers chapter 32, comfort without courage actually fractures community health. And what we'll notice in this particular chapter is that we're going to have to wrestle with Reuben and Gad's request to settle early. And this shows how legitimate personal needs can actually become excuses to abandon the common mission that the entire community has. I'll give you one immediate action at the end of this episode to keep your promises from becoming desertion. So listen closely. This episode will move you from private comfort to shared courage. In this episode of Biblical Unlocks, this show is designed to help build your habit of reading the Bible, understanding the Bible, and applying it in your daily life. If you enjoy episodes like this, please consider following and rating the show. It's free, it helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. Now, let's get a little bit of context into the chapter. Alright, so this chapter narrates Reuben and Gad. Okay, so the Reubenites and the Gadites, they are, remember, the two of the 12 tribes of Israel, and they're asking for the lands east of the Jordan because they have large flocks. And Moses is actually going to start worrying because he worries that they'll shrink the fighting needed to make or to take the promised land. And they instead promise to fight alongside Israel until everyone has rest and the arrangement is made. And the text actually sits squarely between the hard aftermath of the conflict and final preparations to possess the land, so it negotiates settlement, mission, and communal responsibility. Okay, so with that in mind, let's read the first 5 verses. This is the request that the Reubenites and the Gadites are going to ask Moses, and you have to ask, the question here is, are their motivations pastoral prudence, or are they just premature actions to preserve themselves? Very important distinction. Let's read verse 1. Now the Reubenites and the Gadites owned a very great number of cattle. When they saw that the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead was a good place for cattle, the Gadites and the Reubenites came and spoke to Moses, to Eleazar the priest, and to the leaders of the congregation, saying, Ataroth, Dibon, Jazer, Nimrah, Heshbon, Elealeh, Sebam, Nebo, and Beon, the land that the Lord subdued before the congregation of Israel, is a land for cattle, and your servants have cattle. They continued, If we have found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants for a possession. Do not make us cross the Jordan. So, biblical unlock number 1. Were Reuben and Gad simply being practical about their livestock? Because obviously this practical need, it is a necessity, perhaps, right? A practical need is real. They seek land which is suited for their flocks. But the text flags a moral tension, and this is going to continue later on. Legitimate personal comfort can actually become a cover for avoiding shared risk, and the reader should ask how private need intersects with public responsibility. This is the key tension here. The idea is, whilst their claim that they want to have land for their cattle and so on and so forth, whilst it is possibly a legitimate claim, we shouldn't let this blind ourselves to another pressing matter, which is they're going to enter the promised land very soon. They're going to need military assistance, right? The entirety of Israel. If they leave early, that might be for a form of self-preservation. So is there underlying motivations which are pushing them to this conclusion? Let's continue reading, verse 6 to 15, and this is Moses' warning and testing. So Moses actually is going to assume the worst, and our question is his suspicion justified? Verse 6, But Moses said to the Gadites and to the Reubenites, Shall your brothers go to war while you sit here? Why will you discourage the hearts of the Israelites from going over into the land that the Lord has given them? Your fathers did this when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. When they went up to the Wadi Eshol and saw the land, they discouraged the hearts of the Israelites from going into the land that the Lord had given them. The Lord's anger was kindled on that day, and he swore, saying, Surely none of the people who came out of Egypt, from 20 years old and up, shall see the land that I swore to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, because they have not unreservedly followed me. None except Jacob, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua, son of Nun, for they have unreservedly followed the Lord. And the Lord's anger was kindled against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness for 40 years, until all the generation that had done evil in the sight of the Lord had disappeared. And now you, a brood of sinners, have risen in place of your fathers to increase the Lord's fierce anger against Israel. If you turn away from following him, he will again abandon them in the wilderness, and you will destroy all this people. Whoa, Moses' reaction is sharp, right? Now, you might question, Moses, are you overreacting here? They just want to have some livestock they just want to have some land for their livestock, and you're going all the way in saying that you're exactly like the previous generation that was grumbling against the Lord and that didn't believe in the Lord. And when they sent the spies, Caleb and Joshua were the only two out of all of them who actually listened and believed that they could enter the promised land, and then because of that they had to wander 40 years in the desert, and now you're going to repeat that same thing and everyone's going to die because of you. A little bit dramatic, don't you think? Not really, because Moses' suspicion protects the community. He knows that promises can be rationalized away, and his sternness tests whether words align with willingness to fight, right? So the warning shows a leader's duty to guard communal mission against erosion. He has been witness to the evils of the past. He knows how God will act in justice against those who do not trust in him, and because of that, he is cautious. Okay, let's read verses 16 to 27 now. The covenant to fight until rest is won. This is the focus here. And my question, or the question to keep us engaged here, is how can a personal agreement be trusted to guarantee the mission of the Israelites? Okay, verse 16, let's read. Then they came up to him and said, "We will build sheepfolds here for our flocks and towns for our little ones." Verse 17, "But we will take up arms as a vanguard before the Israelites until we have brought them to their place. Meanwhile, our little ones will stay in the fortified towns because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return to our homes until all the Israelites have obtained their inheritance. We will not inherit with them on the other side of the Jordan and beyond, because our inheritance has come to us on this side of the Jordan to the east." So Moses said to them, "If you do this, if you take up arms to go before the Lord for the war, and all those of you who bear arms cross the Jordan before the Lord until he has driven out his enemies from before him, and the land is subdued before the Lord, then after that you may return and be free of obligation to the Lord and to Israel, and this shall be your possessions before the Lord. But if you do not do this, you have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. Build towns for your little ones and folds for your flocks, but do what you have promised." Then the Gadites and the Reubenites said to Moses, "Your servants will do as my Lord commands. Our little ones, our wives, our flocks, and all our livestock shall remain there in the towns of Gilead. But your servants will cross over, everyone armed for war, to do battle for the Lord, just as my Lord orders." Alright, just quickly, I wanted to go back to see a verse here because I found it very interesting. Verse 23, so Numbers chapter 31, verse 23. We see, "But if you do not do this, you have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out." I just found that really interesting because that is precisely what Jesus says in the New Testament, that what you do in secret will be found out because the Lord sees what is done in secret. Even the good you do, the bad you do, the Lord will see everything. Okay, so that's just something here. Now, the biblical unlock number 3, which I wanted to go over, is, my question to you is, again, can a conditional promise like this be trusted? Right? So there's a conditional promise here. And the conditional promise that is being presented is, "We will build our sheepfolds here for our flocks and towns for our little ones, but we will take up arms as a vanguard before the Israelites until we have brought them to their place. Meanwhile, our little ones will stay in the fortified towns because of the inhabitants of the land." So there is a condition here. It is contingent upon something. The tribes are making a pledge, a clear commitment. We'll fight now and we'll settle later. And the ritualized vow and community oversight actually create accountability so that the private settlement won't actually translate into a communal desertion. So this is actually much better than what they were saying beforehand. So it is important. Moses had a strict, stern warnings reminding the Israelites, the tribes of the Reubenites and the Gadites, what had happened in the past. And then he says, Okay, I understand your new proposal, but if you do not do this, remember this, if you do not do this, your sin will be found out. That's verse 23. So, if you do not do this, you have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. Okay, let's read verses 28 to 42, and this is going to be the last part of the chapter. So Moses gave command concerning them to Eleazar the priest, to Joshua son of Nun, and to the heads of the ancestral houses of the Israelite tribes. And Moses said to them, if the Gadites and the Reubenites, everyone armed for battle before the Lord, will cross over Jordan with you, and the land shall be subdued for you, then you shall give them the land of Gilead for a possession. But if they will not cross over with you armed, they shall have possessions among you in the land of Canaan. The Gadites and the Reubenites answered, saying, as the Lord has spoken to your servants, so we will do. We will cross over armed before the Lord into the land of Canaan, but the possession of our inheritance shall remain with us on this side of the Jordan. Moses gave to them, to the Gadites and to the Reubenites and to the half-tribe of Manasseh, son of Joseph, the kingdom of King Sihon of the Amorites, and the kingdom of King Og of Bashan, the land and its towns with the territories of the surrounding towns. And the Gadites rebuilt Dibon, Ataroth, Aroeriah, Aroth Shopan, Jazer, Jogbehah, Beth Nimrah, and Beth Haran, fortified cities and folds for sheep. And the Reubenites rebuilt Heshbon, Elealah, Kiriathaim, Nebo, and Baalmeon, some names being changed, and Sibmah, and they gave names to the towns that they rebuilt. The descendants of Machir, son of Manasseh, who went to Gilead, captured it, and dispossessed the Amorites who were there. So Moses gave Gilead to Machir, son of Manasseh, and he settled there. Jair, son of Manasseh, went and captured their villages and renamed them Havoth Jair. And Nobah went and captured Kenath and its villages and renamed it Nobah after himself. Alright, final biblical unlock number 4. How does Israel make peace with both settlement and unity? How? By converting the request into public agreement with enforceable terms and shared oversight. The settlement becomes legitimate when it is tethered to the common good, when boundaries are negotiated rather than assumed. There are clear boundaries, clear directions, and clear policies. This is precisely what makes this final settlement peaceful and unified. And unfortunately for Israel, this is not going to last as we get into Judges later on when we read that, but this is the beginning. Okay, let's see how this chapter fulfills Jesus Christ. There's tension in this chapter. I don't know if you can tell, but there's a tension between rest and responsibility, personal comfort and calling by the community. And all of this find its Christian fulfillment in Jesus Christ, how he summons to take up the cross and follow him. Jesus reorients how we seek rest. True rest is not private ease, but the peace that comes when a people bear one another's burdens under his lordship. The church, therefore, must structure belonging so that legitimate needs are cared for, yes, but never at the cost of abandoning the collective mission. And what is that mission? As we read in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Christ gives a rest that surpasses all understanding, and Christ gives a rest that need not be justified. Why? Because he has already paid the price for our sins. Okay, let's go through some practical applications now. Okay, so 1 to 2 crisp actions that you can do this week. Promise check. Make sure that you list any commitments that you've made, either to a team, church, friend, family member, and so forth. And for each promise that you've made, you need to note whether you've acted upon it, or you've delayed with a good reason, or you've let comfort win. And it's important that you make restoration for that which you have done or failed to do. So you can make a phone call, say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I meant to follow up with you on this particular matter. Let me do that now." Okay, and the other thing is a household covenant drill. If you lead a group, adopt a short practice. Any request to alter service, right? So that alter as in change service, like stepping back from the team, it requires pause, conversation, and accountability. You can't avoid your responsibility if it's out of comfort. You're seeking comfort as opposed to actually dealing with the challenges. Being a Christian is not easy. You have to carry your cross. It's like dying. But Jesus also said, as I said in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, "Come all unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." So it is a balance that you need to pray and seek God's wisdom to maintain. All right, well, that's it for this episode of Biblical Unlocks. Next time, we'll follow Israel's final stages of wandering and encampments in Numbers chapter 33, a journey map that helps us read pilgrimage as formation. And we'll ask, how does the track of travel teach faithful endurance? And if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to rate the show and follow. It's free, it helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. Otherwise, just have a blessed day. And remember, if you're not in your word, you're in your feelings. Godspeed.